just wanted to pop in and first of all, just kind of, I don't know, I like to talk into the phone sometimes to say hi to people because I'm not so great at keeping up one-to-one. Of course, that's the wine train just going by. And also, I wanted to talk about, like tantric practices and how just my own personal experience learning about tantric practices from a Tibetan Rinpoche. So I want to talk a little bit about that. But first, I wanted to say, yeah, I'm looking rough. Well, my hair is like, I'm getting bald spots and stuff from either the lupus or this migraine medicine, which is actually working okay. But yeah, it's kind of gross. So I put on these nice Oaxacan Mexican silversmith style earrings from Elena Solo, who was a lady from the US who went down to Oaxaca because she was so taken with the long tradition of silversmiths work that they have down there, incredible jewelry and other silver items. And yeah, she learned her own techniques and she sells these wonderful pieces of jewelry that I've been able to get through the years in Berkeley and California because well, ever since people came to the Americas, there's been this great exchange of people and ideas and creativity in all art parts of life between these, well, what's now the state of California and what's now Mexico, the country of Mexico. So yeah, just a little bit of shout out there. And I like this, wearing this one huge wild earring today because when I was living at a Tibetan Buddhist meditation center in the 90s, Awam Choden up in Kensington, California, we had a visit from His Holiness the Sakya Trizin, who's different from the guy now, and he was incredible, but also he was very known for just wearing like this one just like banging Tibetan turquoise earring. So I thought I'd do that in honor of him. So yeah, so part of my path has been to study through learning, books, discussion with people online, you know, and in real life, but also some contact with, you know, teachers from these traditions in real life. Including things such as empowerments, formal speeches, reading their works, that type of thing. But also, as I said, I actually went and lived in the center for like, I was like 3 or 4 years in the 90s. It was very small, not a super active center at that time. And it was with Lama Kunga Rinpoche, who was born, his dad was the treasurer in the Dalai Lama's government. And then when he was born, after a few years, he was recognized as a Rinpoche. So he went and, he was taken to live with monks in a monastery. It's a Sakya monastery tradition. And learned, you know, everything you need to do to be a Tibetan Lama. And I don't want to say this. He's from the Sakya tradition, so that is known as like being one of like kind of more brainiac, focused on written teachings, focused on preserving written teachings, more kind of intellectually inclined traditions of the various schools of Tibetan Buddhism. So he knew all that, but he had also been trained in for, you know, like dream yoga, and people would see doppelgangers of him and things like that. I did POA. Gave any number of empowerment. So he was also, you know, you could go there and if you want to get the paranormal stuff, I guess, what you call it, then that could be there for you too. So it was a very interesting time in my life, and we did have a Sangha. It was not like super huge, but there were people involved with the center, and one of them was actually, she's come out now, but Judith Skinner, who was Rinpoche's girlfriend for a number of years until she went on retreat about 25 years ago, and she's been on retreat ever since in San Francisco. There's a small documentary on her, but I learned a tremendous amount from her as well as from Rinpoche. And so it's interesting to me because, of course, Tantra was like a big subject of discussion, and it's very different from I hear a lot of people talking about Tantra in podcasts and in esoteric circles. And for example, Phil Hine, has written a lot, and I mean, from everything I could tell, it's important and very well done work about the history of these ideas about Tantra and the subtle bodies and the various practices coming over to the West from where they grew up in, India and the East. Um, and so I have these like discussions about things like, well, how many chakras were there actually in the real tradition that was like 4,000 years ago, and actually it wasn't the same number of chakras, and they weren't meaning to do the same things, and blah blah. All of which I will concede, and is probably true. Um, and I think as far as like the history of Tantra and acknowledging the people who developed these systems and practices, where they come from, is all very important. At the same time, when I was there living with someone who had trained in these traditions, it was a lot more, okay, I'm going to teach you a mantra and a prayer that you can say before you eat. And here's the training on how you use this practice day by day, bit by bit, to cultivate loving kindness and concern for sentient beings, to think about how you can reduce their suffering. Now, of course, praying a mantra in this tradition in and of themselves will help to reduce suffering. Going along the path will help to reduce suffering as you become more capable of embodying bodhisattva activity. But also, there was a lot of stuff, people were like, okay, you could go and volunteer someplace, right? You can, when we're done having a big dinner for some fancy lama, you can go take leftovers down to the people you know who are hungry in the city and check in on them and say hi, and here's a nice meal for you. You could help create a park. You could help teach people to read. You can, and this is another thing that kind of cracks me up, because you can bet every time there was a protest against the Chinese embassy, he was down there and people were down there protesting against the Chinese. So political action could be considered as part of trying to reduce the suffering of sentient beings. So something as simple as a prayer before eating, where you're thinking about, okay, who helped produce this food? What were creatures that died? Because even if you have a vegetable or something, oftentimes, you have like pests and everything that are sprayed for or killed in other ways. So there's always, we're always in the soup of life. And so, since you have to eat every day, a couple times at least, right? This is a way to always bring to mind the that you're trying to awaken that bodhisattva vow, the heart, right? The impetus to actually do something and go help how you can to reduce suffering. And in any time and in any place, this is going to be different, right? Because circumstances vary. And so I understand people desiring to go and find authentic tradition, something that's the real deal when it like first started out, and get plugged into that circuit. However, it was so funny because at Ewam Choden, they have a Sunday night Chenrezig meditation, which is open to everyone, right? You don't have to have an empowerment. You can just go there and just get started on learning some meditation skills, some chanting skills, visualizations. So of course, with Lama Kunga coming over, because he came over in '62, he had to escape from Tibet, came through Nepal, came over to the United States. And so of course he's been like in a monastery with all these like super, monks that are just like not grinding, really super into all this stuff and have nothing to do except for, like talk each other through dream yoga for weeks or whatever. So he and Judith would talk about how when he first came over, he'd have like these super intense, intricate, more authentic, no doubt, visualizations for these Chenrezig or Avalokiteshvara meditations, right? And the students were like trying to, but it's like they just like could not do it, because of course he hadn't had this type of training, I mean, he'd been training since he was a little kid. so people couldn't do it. So what did he do? Did he say, oh, this isn't authentic, so, give the rigid digit to all these students? No, he's like, no, this is, we need to teach for what's happening now. So he would uh, alter his visualization practices and his images so that the students could accomplish them and focus on that connection to the lineage, awakening that heart to action, um, and thinking about how are we going to benefit other sentient beings? How can we continue this tradition? How can I enact tantra in my life, even though I'm not living in, I don't know, 15th century Tibet or whatever the hell? Um, and that always really struck with me. And he and Judith made an excellent pair. Was incredibly fortunate because he had this whole history, very accomplished, with practice and everything. And Judith was a Caucasian lady who's a writer and very articulate. And so she always just knew how to put it across to the Western mind. Um, and so they made a really great team because she could really take it and deliver it in a way that people from a different time and place and culture could comprehend, because that's part of the beauty of these traditions and these practices of Tantra, is that it's still alive and it's still vital, and you can still construct these practices, right? You can think about when you're just having a drink of water, offering it. You could think about how lucky you are to have water. Think about the sentient beings who are could use water now but don't have it, right? People in war zones, people who are being bombed, people who are trying to cross the border. There's a lot of people that can't even have water. So you think about that, and that can motivate you to the action of in 3D reality, being able to do something to try and help people. And it's never good. It's never enough. You always wish you could do more. You always feel overwhelmed. But that's the other part of the beauty of these practices, is to calm your mind, to plug yourself into this tradition where you can have that equanimity to be able to act even in these very uncertain and discouraging and terrible times. And so, who gives a shit how many chakras there were several hundred years ago, right? There's people suffering right now. And for me, when I was taught, Rinpoche always, 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 I mean, I have criticized him on my blog in the past for certain practices. Always, always, it's like, what are you doing to help try and reduce the suffering of sentient beings? And that was the long and the short of it. And you can be able to do all type of, flowery meditations and mandala offerings and all this type of stuff, which is great. And it has also a cultural aspect of it, which he has, of course, spoken about explicitly. But in the end, it's a Mahayana Buddhist practice. So, you're trying to cultivate that Mahayana insight, and then once you achieve it, to go on from there to reduce suffering of sentient beings, and to awaken your heart and mind, and dare I say your ass, to get off of it and actually help people. So it's strange to me to hear a lot of the more intellectual or book-based talking about this stuff, which I don't, I mean, I do not have a problem with it, and I think it's a very important part of the path. But what's even more important is to do what you can to awaken your heart to the bodhisattva activity and heart, so that you can, try and help other people out. It's like today, it's like, I'm a carer for my mom, and she's had this like horrendous, awful full body itching for like weeks, and it leading to insomnia. And can I do eight, I don't know, like 100 prostrations in the morning? No, but I can go and, at least help her with her meds and her regime, which to help calm down her itching, and so she can sleep, which is good. I can keep an eye out for my neighbors. We're all in different positions with different capabilities, and part of these practices are to open your heart, open your mind so that you can see where you are and where the opportunities are for you to at least nudge things in a direction where there's less suffering. And absolutely, books and learning about these traditions are part of that. I don't want to be like shitting on that. But it's funny because I think back to Rinpoche and he's always like, it's kind of like, what are you doing to actually help someone out at this point, right? I mean, there's plenty of things to do. Um, so, I don't know. I just wanted to say that there have been recently on Guru Viking podcast. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to record this. Guru Viking podcast. He has had some Caucasian Westerner female practitioners of Tibetan Buddhism on his show recently, and they're very interesting to listen to. One lady's talking about like tantric sexual practices, which is very informative, especially if you're thinking about getting involved in anything like that. But also that they're very much just kind of like okay, and then it comes down to what are you doing to help reduce the suffering of sentient beings. I mean, it's just like this is what it's always coming back to because that's a tradition. Now, other tantric traditions, I mean, I can't speak to, but that was what I heard. That's what I kind of took away from it. Yeah, so I don't know. I feel like I miss people all because I haven't been as online, but I'm dealing with health stuff and then health stuff with my mom as well. And everyone's dealing with a lot of BS here in the United States. But stay strong and do what you can to remain tranquil and with an open heart. And yeah, take care. I don't know how to stop this.